Let me ask you a question. What's the most valuable thing you have? Your mind, your time, your talents and abilities? All of those are incredibly valuable, no doubt. But there's something even more precious, your philosophy. Your philosophy is the major determining factor in how your life works out. You see, your philosophy determines everything. What you'll attempt, what you'll risk, how you'll treat opportunities that come along, how much energy you'll expend, how long you'll persevere. Your philosophy is the root. So what's your philosophy? Do you have one that serves you and helps you become better? Or is your philosophy holding you back from the extraordinary life you deserve? I'm here to share a powerful philosophy with you today. One that can dramatically change your results if you embrace it. I'm calling it Shock Them with Your Silence. This philosophy is about understanding that oftentimes the loudest thing you can do is say nothing at all. In this crazy, noisy world we live in, where everyone is clamoring to have their voice heard, sometimes the most impactful move is to stay calm and stay quiet. You've got to understand, the majority of people can't help but run off at the mouth. They get emotionally hijacked and lose their composure quickly. Small irritations send them into rants and make them say things they'll regret. I'm sure you've experienced this yourself at times. But you can choose to be different. You can choose to shock them with your silence. When everyone else is coming unglued and losing their head, you can stay centered and in control. Your silence in those heated moments will speak volumes. It might just shock a few people. Let me give you an example to illustrate the power of this philosophy. Insert hypothetical example. Story showing the impact of responding with silence versus getting upset. Escalating a confrontation. Do you see how maintaining your silence, staying composed, and not taking the bait can completely change the situation? Instead of adding fuel to the fire and making things worse, you stemmed the tide with your quiet strength. That's the power of shocking them with your silence. Here's the truth. When you blow up and lose your cool, you've lost the battle. All you're doing is giving away your power. But when you remain silent and stay in control, you're the one holding all the chips. That unflappable composure you display throws people for a loop and leaves them looking ridiculous for their overreaction. On top of that, restraining yourself from mouthing off in tense moments means you don't end up saying things you can't take back. We've all been there, gotten caught up in the heat of the moment and said things we regretted instantly. But with this shock them, with your silence philosophy, you avoid all of that unnecessary self-inflicted damage. Silence is strength, my friends. When you can hold your tongue instead of popping off, that shows a maturity and discipline that most people can't even fathom. That ability to stay above the fray and not get drawn into the drama is an incredibly powerful skill to develop. I'm not saying you should always stay silent no matter what. Of course, there are times to speak up and have your say. What I'm advocating is being judicious with your words and recognizing when silence is the best response. Don't just spew reactions without thinking. Create a pause for yourself to decide if putting more words out there is actually going to help the situation or not. You've got to value your speech. The wise understand that once words leave your mouth, you can never take them back. So you want to be highly selective about what you decide to say. The fools just babble on and on without giving it a second thought. If you get into the habit of shocking them with your silence, you'll see all sorts of benefits unfold in your life. You'll have higher quality relationships because you'll start to really listen to others instead of just waiting to talk. You'll start to think before you speak and communicate with more precision and intention. And you'll carry yourself with a gravitas that commands respect. All of that makes for better results in every area of life. On top of that, when you develop this skill of restraint and staying cool under pressure, you'll start to influence others in a powerful way. A person who can stay composed and in control, even in the most heated circumstances. Now that's a leader that others want to follow. You'll be able to maintain your poise in high-stakes situations and model the behavior you want to see from those around you. The world craves more leaders with that kind of quiet inner strength, Folks are exhausted from all the unhinged ranting and raving and loss of emotional control. By shocking them with your silence, you provide a stark contrast to that. You show people a better way, a way rooted in self-mastery and thoughtfulness. That ability to not show all your cards is incredibly attractive to others. You'll captivate them with your mystique. So let me challenge you today. Actively look for opportunities to shock them with your silence. When someone is trying to bait you into overreacting or drag you into some trivial drama, don't take the bait. Maintain that stoic silence and watch how quickly the situation diffuses. You'll throw them for a loop by not giving them the explosive response they were expecting. At first, it may feel uncomfortable to bite your tongue like that. It's not easy to hold back when your emotions are running high. But the more you practice it, the better you'll get. Start small if you need to. Then work your way up to being able to stay silent, even in real heated, testy scenarios. Just think about how that skill will serve you in all areas of life. Your career, your relationships, your ability to stay focused and productive. Imagine the positive influence you'll have on others when they see you as the grounded, unshakable pillar in the midst of all the chaos and commotion. That's the power you cultivate when you truly embody shocking them with your silence. And as always, it's not just about staying silent on the outside. Just as important is the inner silence and stillness you develop. Because when you can quiet the noise in your own mind and avoid letting negativity rent space in your head, inner peace and outer poise go hand in hand when you follow this philosophy. Think about the most respected, revered figures in history. They didn't just talk a big game. They walked in silence and lived with purposeful intent. Their words were carefully chosen and carried great weight as a result. That's what you're gunning for here. To develop that powerful presence that comes from shocking them with your silence. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you feel that urge to sound off or lash out, pause and consider restraining yourself instead. Shock him with that silence and see how the dynamics of the situation shift. Little by little, start developing the habit until it just becomes second nature. Before long, you'll be operating from a completely different level of poise and composure. When you stay solid and steadfast in the midst of the storm, people will start to take notice. You'll earn a reputation as someone who just doesn't get ruffled or thrown off their game. And trust me, that kind of unflappable character is extremely rare and valuable in today's world. So go ahead, shock them with your silence. Let your quiet confidence drown out all the noise and negativity. Because at the end of the day, those who make the biggest mark are the ones who embrace solitude, serenity, and stillness of spirit. That's you, when you adopt this empowering philosophy. Now, get going and shock this world with just how unshakable and unbreakable you can be. You know, one of the biggest reasons people struggle to shock them with their silence is because they're addicted to being right. They just can't stand being questioned or contradicted, so they immediately go on the offensive to defend their position and prove the other person wrong at all costs. But here's the hard truth. Having to constantly prove you're right is a prison of your own making. It traps you in this compulsive cycle of having to react and refute everything. You're constantly in defense mode, which robs you of your peace of mind. The liberated individuals are the ones who are free from that incessant need to be right. They've realized that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Sometimes the most powerful move is to just gracefully bow and keep it moving. To shock them with your silence, when you can walk away from petty squabbles without feeling the urge to have the last word, that's true power. That's when you've risen above all the childish bickering. You don't get stuck in those pointless downward spirals that just suck away your vital energy. In fact, responding to negativity with silence is one of the most effective ways to disarm it. It's like pouring water on a grease fire. When you don't fight the negativity, you actually take away its fuel source and it dies out. Pretty powerful, isn't it? The key is to not take things so personally in the first place. Most of the junk people throw at you isn't even about you. It's just their own hurt and insecurity leaking out. When you can separate yourself from it and not take the bait, You avoid escalating the situation unnecessarily. This is a lesson that's easy to understand, but brutally hard to actually live out. Our egos get wrapped up in every little disagreement. We feel compelled to fight tooth and nail to vigorously defend our stance on even the most insignificant issues. It's childish when you think about it. But those who shock them with their silence have reached a higher level of self-mastery. They operate from a place of unshakable confidence where they don't need to prove anything to anyone. Their sense of self-worth isn't riding on whether they're declared right or not in any given situation, so they can afford to stay quiet and not get drawn into fruitless battles. They save their breath for what really matters instead of wasting it on trivial ego-preserving squabbles. And in doing so, they maintain a regal, unruffled poise that others are drawn to. The beauty is that, from that place of silence, your words regain their potency. When you're not constantly jabbering away, the few words you do speak carry substance and significance. They have real weight behind them. But the sad reality is most of us run our mouths so incessantly that our words become devalued. We cheapen our rhetoric through sheer volume. It loses its impact and significance. That's why I always tell folks to strive to become better listeners. When you spend more time listening intently than just waiting for your turn to retort, you'll become wiser. You'll start picking up on valuable nuances you'd otherwise miss. The great leaders and influencers of the world are masters at this. They're not just trying to hear the words someone is saying. They're working to truly understand the full context, emotions, and deeper meaning behind the message. That level of presence and awareness is incredibly powerful. It's what allows them to stay unruffled even when the people around them are getting frazzled and frantic. While everyone else gets thrown off by the surface turbulence, the great listeners are able to remain centered because they're tuned into the core truth of the situation. That kind of perception is simply not possible when your mind is a jumbled mess of reactions and you can't stop thinking about what you're going to say next. You have to find that inner quiet if you want to rise to the next level of awareness. So let me ask you, what is more important to you? Being right and winning some petty argument? Or actually hearing those around you, understanding them and positioning yourself for greater insight and influence? Hopefully you can see the path forward. Shocking them with your silence isn't just a cute catchphrase. It's a fundamental paradigm shift in how you operate. It's about valuing productive speech over useless prattle. It's about evolving beyond those compulsive reactionary behaviors that keep you stuck. The world is in desperate need of more individuals who embody this ethos. People who stay rooted in their noble, divine silence when the raging storms of negativity and conflict inevitably arise around them. Human beings who radiate an unshakable inner tranquility and refuse to join the circus of hostility. Those unflappable souls are who the masses subconsciously aspire to become. They're the ones we look up to for higher guidance and wisdom beyond the daily hysteria. And whether you realize it or not, that elevated stature is available to each and every one of you. All you have to do is commit to this transformative path. Make the conscious decision to curate your speech more mindfully. Get out of the mindless debate games and develop the discipline to shock them with your silence when appropriate. It may feel awkward at first if you're used to always having to get the last word in. You may even encounter people who try to bait you into reacting because they're not used to the new silent treatment you're giving them. But stick with it. The more you embrace this philosophy, the quicker it will become second nature. Before long, your hair trigger reaction to lash out verbally will be replaced by a pause, a breath, a decision to disengage if the situation doesn't require your involvement. And let me tell you, when you start operating from that level of mastery over your speech and emotional state, it's like unlocking an entirely new dimension of personal power and presence. You'll see people and situations with a clarity you could scarcely imagine before. The trivial dramas and meaningless conflicts will start looking more and more foolish to you. Why even entertain that silliness when you know the only real battle worth waging is the internal one for complete self-mastery. That's where your energy will increasingly shift. Doing the rigorous inner work to shock them with your silence at the deepest levels. Not just restraining reactive speech, but quieting the incessant mental chatter as well. Finding the blissful inner stillness and being able to reside in it, no matter what storms are swirling around you. From that place of profound quietude, your mere presence will be enough to hush unruly situations and reverberate with power. People will sense something different about you, a magnificence that transcends surface-level hostilities. They'll be shocked by your silence in the best possible way. My friends, this is the highest path open to a human being, to live rooted in that unshakable, reverential silence, to not be jerked around by the world's melodramas because you've achieved sovereignty over your interior domain, to speak selectively yet profoundly when the moment calls for it. Does that not ignite every fiber of your being? Doesn't it stir your soul to imagine operating from that enlightened level? That level of freedom, self-actualization, and quiet domination over circumstance. If so, then let this wisdom of shocking them with your silence be your lotus star. Let it guide you steadfastly to those hallowed grounds of mastery. The path will not be easy. In fact, it's one of the most demanding undertakings you can attempt. But for those who walk it fully, the rewards are beyond reckoning. So, embrace the silent journey before you. Still the restless winds of reactivity and emotionalism within your heart. Temper that untamed mind that wants to blurt out harsh words without prudence. And commit yourself to forging the extraordinary life that is your birthright through the consecrated power of your noble, reverential silence. You know, one of the biggest challenges we face on this journey is not letting ourselves get seduced by empty pleasures that drain our vigor. I see so many folks bouncing from one cheap thrill to the next, squandering their most precious resources of time and energy on hollow pursuits. But not you. Not the person committed to living by this. Shock them with your silence philosophy. You understand that constructing an extraordinary life cannot happen by accident? It takes a cultivated discipline and sense of priorities. While most are content to sleepwalk through their days, stumbling from one distraction to the next, you're wide awake. You recognize the priceless value of your finite life force, and you've made the decision to invest it with utmost intention rather than frivolously frittering it away. That's what gives you the strength to resist the lures of the low pleasures that entrap so many others. You don't need to constantly divert yourself with inane entertainment or numb yourself with indulgent overconsumption. No, your satisfaction comes from deeper, more nourishing well springs. When the mindless masses are binging on the junk food of life, you're savoring the nourishing sustenance available to those who embrace stillness and elevate their tastes. You've discovered how to find profound fulfillment in simplicity, in unhurried moments of quiet contemplation and being present to what is rather than constantly craving some artificial future state. This ability to find joy in fewer things while filtering out the relentless drone of empty distractions, that may be one of the most empowering side effects of living this philosophy. Finally, you're able to hear that soft, still voice within that guides you toward your highest potentials. You see, when your mind is cluttered with endless external noise and chatter, music, podcasts, notifications, you name it, something deep within you grows malnourished. That part of you that craves serenity, solitude, and elegant simplicity gets starved. And without nurturing that foundational need, you become a sorry shadow of your greatest self. But lucky for you, you're waking up to how to sate your innermost hunger. By shocking them with your silence, you're reconnecting to the nourishing wellspring of peace and presence that's available in each and every moment, if you're willing to fight for it amidst the pandemonium. Let's face it, the world wants to drown out that sacred silence and bombard you with relentless noise and frantic overstimulation. There's an entire multi-billion-dollar industry trying to hijack your attention and turn you into a mindless consumer of its products. They don't want you discovering the richness of inner stillness. But you know better now, don't you? You've realized that the greatest joys and most sublime experiences life has to offer can't be packaged in a box and sold on a shelf. They don't come through passively consuming one more piece of content or drug of distraction. No, those highest ecstasies only reveal themselves when you've disciplined yourself to shock them with your silence, when you've done the rigorous inner work to find the imperturbable calm within the eye of the storm, no matter how ferocious the winds kick up around you. From that hallowed place of blissful quietude, that's where everything tremendous is born. Every great work of art, every revolutionary act of creativity and service, every paradigm-shifting invention that propels humanity forward, those all emerged from the womb of consecrated silence. Someone somewhere along the way made the heroic choice to tune out the ambient noise of the mundane world and tune into the silent whisperings calling them toward magnificence. And by summoning that unshakable poise and focus, they brought genius into form and forever altered human civilization. That inspirational lineage now falls squarely on your shoulders, my friend, if you can conquer the restless demons that try to lure you into easy distractions at every turn. You'll enter those hallowed grounds of the greats. You'll finally be able to hear your summons to a higher order of utilization of this incarnation you've been blessed with. Within that reverent silence, you'll encounter the deepest insights about your purpose and potential. You'll gain crystalline clarity on your most authentic values and what you're truly meant to pour your life force into creating and contributing to this world. And let me tell you, when you anchor into that level of profound attunement and conviction, you become an unstoppable force. Trivial obstacles and human criticism no longer hold sway over your trajectory. You operate from a domain of perception that transcends all that petty stuff. That's when your path comes into laser focus while others fritter their lives away, distracted and overwhelmed. You stride forth fueled by a potent combination of unshakable tranquility and white-hot, purposeful ambition. What a beautiful duality to embody. Think about the icons you admire throughout history. The Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings, the Einsteins. Their greatness and impact didn't arise from reacting constantly like the herd. No, it flowed from their ability to shock them with their silence on a whole other level that most can scarcely comprehend. They stilled their minds to tap into insights and innovations the status quo could never conceive of. And having drunk from those nourishing well springs of inner quietude, they then took earth-shaking action from that state of elevated awareness. My friends, that same heroic journey is calling to you. The same unfathomable deeps of wisdom and inspiration are beckoning for you to immerse yourself in their mystical waters. All you have to do is commit yourself to the same lofty discipline of shocking them with your silence. I know it's not easy turning down the volume on the endless superficial banter and shallow distractions of the ordinary world. This noisy, frenetic age makes it challenging to prioritize stillness and go inside. But those are the price of admission to the extraordinary life. The choice is yours. Keep riding the hedonistic treadmill of chasing fleeting pleasures until you're depleted, hollow, and wondering where all the years went. Or double down on mastering the arts of tranquil, abiding, and judicious speaking, so you can finally sample the transcendent states and actualize the work you were put on this earth to do. For those with the courage to truly walk this path, I can make you one promise. You will encounter achievements and experience soul-shaking raptures of fulfillment that dwarf your current strivings and preoccupations. The ordinary world will shrink in your rear view as you advance into the extraordinary. So let that ambitious fire burn hot within you. Integrate the stillness on the one hand with the passion on the other. Shock them with your reverent silence when called for, and shock them again with your prolific creative output when the muse strikes. Bring heaven and earth together in that way, and you'll architect a life of heroic proportions. The full scope of your powers has yet to be realized. But with this shock them with your silence philosophy as your faithful guide, you'll discover what you're truly capable of. One step at a time, one focused breath at a time, you'll ascend the mountaintop and occupy the lofty air that sages and mystics have spoken of throughout the ages. That is both your destiny and your birthright, my friends. Lay claim to it by revering and harnessing the hallowed gift of noble silence. Shape your destiny from the kiln of that still, blazing fire within. And go forth to shock this world with the spiritual riches that await you at the summit.